The void of space stretched endlessly beyond the viewport of the stellar wanderer, stars glittering like scattered diamonds against the cosmic darkness. Captain Jace Rowan adjusted the scanner controls with practiced precision, his weathered hands moving over the console as he conducted another routine survey of the uncharted sector. At 34, he'd spent the better part of a decade exploring the galaxy's remote corners, preferring the solitude of deep space to the crowded space stations and colonies. What the hell? Jace muttered, leaning forward as an anomalous reading appeared on his screen. A metallic signature drifted approximately 2,000 kilometers off his starboard bow, too regular to be an asteroid, too small to be a station. He maneuvered the wanderer closer, his pulse quickening as the object resolved into a sleek, organic-looking vessel, unlike anything in human design databases. The ship's hull bore elegant curves and spiraling patterns that seemed to flow like liquid metal, beautiful yet alien. But something was wrong. No power signatures, no communications, no signs of life. Derelict, he whispered, activating his ship's emergency protocols. As an explorer, he'd encountered dozens of abandoned vessels, but this one felt different. The craftsmanship spoke of a highly advanced civilization, yet it drifted lifeless through the void. Jace suited up and crossed to the alien vessel via umbilical. The airlock cycled with surprising compatibility, as if designed for multiple species. Inside, bioluminescent panels provided dim emergency lighting, casting eerie shadows down corridors that curved organically rather than following straight human lines. He found her in what appeared to be an emergency pod near the ship's center. Being was unmistakably humanoid, but ethereally beautiful in a way that took his breath away. Her skin held a subtle lavender hue that seemed to shimmer in the low light, and her hair cascaded in silver waves that moved as if underwater. She wore form-fitting garments that looked grown rather than manufactured, clinging to a figure that was both elegant and alluring. Most striking were her closed eyes, larger than human, with delicate features that spoke of refined evolution. She was dying. Even without medical training, Jace could see the signs. Her breathing was shallow and irregular, her skin pale beneath its natural coloring. Strange neural feedback patterns played across her temples in fading bioluminescent traces. "Easy there," he murmured, carefully lifting her into his arms. She weighed less than expected, her body temperature several degrees warmer than human normal. "I've got you." Back aboard his ship, Jace placed her in his medical bay and did what he could with basic first aid. Her anatomy appeared compatible enough with human physiology that standard life support seemed to help. For 3 hours, he monitored vital signs, noting how they gradually strengthened. When she finally stirred, her eyes opened to reveal irises of deep violet that seemed to swirl with inner light. She gasped, sitting up quickly, then groaned and pressed delicate hands to her temples. Double quotes. Where, where am I? Her voice carried a melodic quality, like music given form, though she spoke perfect if accented standard. "Safe," Jace replied, holding up his hands peacefully. "I'm Captain Jace Rowan. I found you aboard a derelict vessel. You were unconscious, barely alive." She studied him with those remarkable eyes, and he felt an odd sensation, as if gentle fingers were brushing the edges of his thoughts. "You single quotes, human." It wasn't a question. "I am Elira of the Valari diplomatic caste. I ... She struggled to stand, swaying dangerously. "Whoa, take it easy." Jace caught her arm, surprised by the jolt of warmth that passed between them at the contact. "You've been through trauma. You need rest." "Rest?" Elira laughed bitterly, the sound both beautiful and heartbreaking. "Human, I appreciate your rescue, but rest won't save me." "Nothing will." She pulled away from his touch, though he noticed she seemed reluctant to break the contact. "What do you mean?" Elira moved to the viewport, gazing out at the stars with an expression of profound loss. My people are dying, Captain Rowan, not from disease or war, but from something far more fundamental. We are telepathically bonded beings. Our neural pathways require emotional tethering to another consciousness to remain stable. Without a psychic bond, she touched her temple, where the bioluminescent traces had been fading. Our minds deteriorate. Eventually, they simply shut down. Jace felt a chill run down his spine. And you don't have this bond? I did once. My bondmate died in the plague that has ravaged our homeworld. Since then, I've searched desperately for another, but she turned to face him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I'm too strong-willed, too mentally powerful. Every Velari, male who has attempted to bond with me has been overwhelmed. They cannot match my psychic intensity. How long do you have? The question hung in the air between them like a death sentence. Elira's shoulders sagged. Days, perhaps hours. Already, I can feel my thoughts beginning to fragment, my memories becoming unclear. Soon, I will lose myself entirely. As if to emphasize her words, she suddenly gasped and stumbled, her eyes unfocusing. Jace caught her before she could fall, and again that strange warmth passed between them. But this time, something else happened. For just a moment, he could swear he felt her emotions, as if they were his own. Desperation, loneliness, and beneath it all, a flicker of something unexpected. Hope. Alira's eyes widened as she looked up at him, her breath catching. That's impossible, she whispered. I felt something just then, a resonance I've never experienced. Her hand rose to touch his face with trembling fingers. What are you, Jace Rowan? The following days aboard the Stellar Wanderer became a delicate dance between hope and despair. Jace watched helplessly as Alira's condition deteriorated with alarming speed. Her episodes of mental collapse grew more frequent and severe moments, where she would suddenly freeze mid-conversation, her violet eyes becoming distant and unfocused, as if her consciousness was slipping away into some unreachable void. The neural pathways are shutting down, she explained during one of her lucid moments, her voice barely above a whisper. She sat curled in the corner of his quarters. Having moved there after claiming the medical bay, felt too clinical, too much. Like the facilities where she'd watched her bondmate die. It's like watching my own mind fade away, piece by piece. Jace knelt beside her, offering a cup of warm tea he'd synthesized to match her species' dietary needs. Tell me about your people. Help me understand. Alira accepted the cup, her fingers brushing his with that same inexplicable warmth they'd both noticed. We evolved as a dual consciousness species. Our minds are like incomplete circuits. We require another to complete the flow of neural energy. The bonding isn't just emotional. It's biological, spiritual, fundamental to our existence. And you've tried to bond with others? A bitter laugh escaped her lips. 17 attempts over the past year. Each one ended in failure. She looked up at him, vulnerability naked in her eyes. I was always considered unusual among my people. Too independent, too strong-willed. Traditional Velari females are more submissive, I suppose you'd say. Their mental patterns are gentler, easier for males to synchronize with. That doesn't sound like a flaw to me, Jace said softly, settling beside her on the floor. It sounds like strength that's killing me. Alira's hand trembled as she sipped the tea. The last male who attempted to bond with me, ... Kyren was his name. He was considered one of our most powerful telepaths. But when our minds touched ... double quotes, she shuddered. He said it was like trying to embrace a star. The intensity overwhelmed him completely. He was hospitalized for weeks. Jace felt something twist in his chest, an emotion he couldn't quite name. Protective? Angry at those who had failed her? Their loss, he murmured. Alira's eyes snapped to his, searching his face. You say that with such conviction. But you don't understand what this means, Jace. The bonding process isn't temporary. It's permanent, forever. Two minds becoming one, sharing everything, thoughts, emotions, memories, desires. Complete vulnerability. No privacy, no secrets, no individual identity in the traditional sense. As if summoned by her words, another. Episode struck. Alira's cup slipped from her fingers as her entire body went rigid. Her eyes rolled back, showing only white, and a low, keening sound emerged from her throat. Without thinking, Jace reached for her, pulling her against his chest. The moment their skin made contact, something extraordinary happened. The keening stopped. Alira's breathing steadied, and slowly, her consciousness seemed to return. But more than that, for several heartbeats, Jace could swear he felt her thoughts brushing against his own, seeking, yearning, finding some kind of resonance. How? She gasped, staring up at him with wonder and confusion. That's never happened before, with anyone. Jace helped her sit up, both of them still shaken by the experience. I don't know. I just ... I felt like you needed me. Needed you? Alira's voice grew stronger, more alert. Jace, what I felt just then, it was like finding water in a desert. Your mind, it's different. Human minds are supposed to be incompatible. With ours too linear, too compartmentalized, but yours ... She reached out tentatively, her fingers hovering just above his temple. May I? He nodded as she placed her palm against his forehead. The contact sent waves of sensation through both of them, not painful, but intensely intimate. Jace felt her consciousness brush against his own, tentative and wondering. Impossible, she breathed. Your neural patterns. They're unlike any human readings I've studied. You have natural telepathic resonance. Latent, untrained, but definitely present. What does that mean? Alira's eyes filled with tears, but for the first time since he'd found her, they weren't tears of despair. It means ... It means you might be able to bond with me. Save me? The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Jace felt his heart racing as he processed what she was suggesting. But I'm human. I'm not Villari. No, you're not. But that might not matter. She moved closer, her hands framing his face. Jace, I can feel it. There's something between us, something I've never experienced with my own kind. When you touch me, when you're near me, the deterioration slows. You're like a stabilizing force. Alira. I know what I'm asking, she continued, her voice growing desperate. I know it's selfish and impossible and terrifying. But I'm running out of time. The episodes are getting worse. Soon, there won't be enough of me left to save. She leaned forward until their foreheads touched, and Jace felt that strange warmth intensify. Her mental voice whispered directly into his thoughts, raw with emotion. I don't want to die alone, Jace. I don't want to fade away into nothing. If we did this, he said slowly, if it's even possible, what would it mean? For both of us? Everything. She whispered. It would mean sharing our very souls. You would feel everything I feel, know everything I know. And I would know you the same way. There would be no going back, no undoing it. We would be bound for life. Jace pulled back to look into her eyes, seeing the swirling galaxies of violet. That seemed to hold entire universes. And if it doesn't work? Alira's smile was heartbreaking in its fragility. Then at least I won't die without trying one more time. At least I won't die wondering what might have been. She slipped from his arms and moved to the viewport, her silhouette ethereal against the starfield. I understand if you can't do it. I understand if the risk is too great. But Jace. Her voice broke, and when she turned back to him, he saw all her masks had fallen away. She was no longer the dignified ambassador or the stoic dying woman. She was simply a Lyra beautiful, terrified, and desperately in love with life. "Bond with me, human," she whispered, her words carrying the weight of her entire existence. "Or I'll perish without you." Part 3. The sacred Bonjace stood at the threshold of his quarters, watching Alira prepare for what they both knew would either save her life or destroy them both. She had spent the past hour transforming the space into something resembling a Valari bonding chamber, arranging bioluminescent crystals from her ship in intricate patterns around the room. The soft, pulsing light cast dancing shadows on the walls, creating an atmosphere both mystical and intimate. "The crystals help focus telepathic energy," she explained, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "They'll amplify our connection and make it easier for our minds to find each other." She had changed into ceremonial garments retrieved from her derelict ship-flowing fabric that seemed to be woven from starlight itself, clinging to her curves while somehow maintaining an ethereal quality. Her silver hair was unbound, cascading over her shoulders like liquid moonlight. "Are you certain about this?" Jace asked, though he'd already made his decision. The past few hours had been torture, watching her fight against another series of increasingly severe episodes. Each time, only his touch seemed to bring her back from the brink. Alira turned to face him, her violet eyes bright with determination and something deeper, an emotion that made his breath catch. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life. When I'm with you, when you touch me, I feel more alive than I have since ... She paused, vulnerability flickering across her features. "Since before I lost everything. You make me feel whole, Jace." He moved closer, drawn by an invisible force that seemed to emanate from her very being. "Tell me what I need to do. The ritual is ancient, sacred to my people. We must bare ourselves completely, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. Every wall, every defense must come down." She reached for him, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. "Are you prepared to let me see all of you? Your fears, your pain, your deepest secrets?" Jace covered her hand with his own. "If it saves you, yes." Alira's smile was radiant. "Then let us begin." She guided him to the center of the crystal formation, where cushions had been arranged in a circle. The bioluminescent stones pulsed in rhythm with their heartbeats, growing brighter as their emotional resonance strengthened. "First, we must connect physically," Alira said, beginning to remove his shirt with reverent touches. "Skin contact amplifies the neural pathways." Jace helped her, his hands trembling slightly as he traced the fastenings of her ceremonial garment. When the fabric fell away, revealing her luminescent skin in the crystal light, he forgot how to breathe. She was magnificent, every curve and line perfectly proportioned, her skin seeming to glow from within. "You're beautiful," he whispered, and felt her mental warmth intensify at his words. "As are you," she replied, running her hands across his chest. "Strong, brave, beautiful, in ways that have nothing to do with appearance." They settled onto the cushions, facing each other in the growing light of the crystals. Alira placed her palms against his temples, and he mirrored the gesture, feeling the electric tingle of her alien neural patterns beneath his fingertips. "Now we open our minds," she breathed, her eyes falling closed. "Let your thoughts flow freely. Don't try to control or direct them. Simply ... be." The initial contact was gentle, like the brush of butterfly wings against his consciousness. Jace felt Alira's presence at the edges of his mind, curious, careful, achingly lonely. He relaxed his mental defenses, allowing her deeper access, and felt her gasp at what she found there. Compassion. Her mental voice whispered in wonder. Such pure compassion. And strength, not the aggressive kind, but the quiet strength of someone who protects others. her own memories began to flow into. Him images of a dying world, the devastating plague that had claimed her bondmate, the crushing loneliness of the past year. But underneath it all, he sensed her essential nature, fierce intelligence, unwavering courage, and a capacity for love that took his breath away. The connection deepened, becoming more intimate than any physical touch. Their breathing synchronized. As their neural pathways began to align, creating new connections between their minds, Jace felt a rush of sensations that weren't his own the way his touch felt to her, electric and warm and desperately needed. In return, she experienced his growing feelings for her, the protective instinct that had driven him to save her, the desire that had been building since the moment he'd found her. "Oh," Alira moaned softly, her body arching as the mental bond triggered physical responses. "Jace, I can feel ... everything." The crystals around them blazed brighter, responding to the energy they were generating. Jace felt his consciousness expanding, stretching to accommodate her presence within his mind. There was a moment of disorientation, almost panic, as his sense of individual self began to blur. "Don't fight it," Alira whispered, both aloud and mentally. "Let go. Trust me." He surrendered completely, and the world exploded into sensation. Their minds merged fully, becoming something greater than the sum of their parts. Every emotion was shared, every thought echoed between them. The pleasure was indescribable, not just physical, though their bodies responded to the intense neural stimulation, but something far deeper and more profound. "We are one." Alira's voice sang in his mind, and he felt the truth of it in every fiber of his being. They were still themselves, but they were also something new, a bonded pair, their consciousnesses intertwined in ways that defied description. The final stage of the bonding washed over them like a tidal wave of pure ecstasy. Jace felt Alira's life force stabilize, her deteriorating neural pathways reinforced by their connection. In return, she poured her own strength into him, expanding his latent telepathic abilities until he could feel the very fabric of the universe. Through her heightened senses, they collapsed together, gasping and trembling, their bodies still humming with residual energy. The crystals had dimmed to a gentle glow, their purpose fulfilled. But the real miracle was in Alira's eyes, bright and clear and fully alive for the first time since he'd found her. "It worked," she breathed, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Jace, it actually worked. I can feel you in my mind, your strength, anchoring me. The deterioration has stopped completely." He pulled her closer, marveling at how right it felt to hold her, how perfectly they fit together. "I can feel you too, your thoughts, your emotions. It's incredible." "This is just the beginning," Alira said, pressing soft kisses to his throat. "We're bonded now, forever connected. There's so much I want to show you, so much we can share." Jace tilted her face up to his, seeing his own wonder reflected in her violet eyes. "I love you," he said, and felt the words resonate through their shared consciousness with perfect truth. "And I love you," she replied, her mental voice singing with happiness. "My bondmate, my salvation, my heart." Their lips met in a kiss that was both tender and passionate, sealing their eternal bond with the promise of a shared future neither of them could have imagined. 3 weeks had passed since the bonding, and Jace was still learning to navigate the extraordinary reality of sharing his consciousness with another being. Every morning he woke to find Alira's thoughts gently intertwined with his own, her mental voice as familiar now as his own heartbeat. The connection had grown stronger with each passing day, deepening their understanding of each other in ways that still left him breathless. "Good morning, my bondmate," Alira whispered, her lips brushing against his ear as consciousness slowly returned to him. Through their link, he could feel her contentment, warm and golden like sunrise. "Morning, love," he replied, pulling her closer against his chest. A simple contact sent waves of shared sensation through both of them, the warmth of skin against skin, the comfort of being held, the underlying current of desire that seemed to flow constantly between them now. Their physical relationship had evolved as naturally as their mental one. With barriers of privacy dissolved, they could feel each other's needs and desires with perfect clarity. When Elira wanted his touch, he knew it in the same instant she did. When his body responded to her nearness, she felt the stirring of his passion as if it were her own. "The Valari delegation will arrive today," Elira said, though her tone carried reluctance. Through their bond, Jace felt her conflicted emotions, excitement at seeing her people again, but also anxiety about their reaction to her unprecedented union with a human. "Are you worried?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Their connection meant that secrets were impossible, but they'd learned to respect each other's need to voice their concerns aloud. "Terrified," she admitted, tracing patterns on his chest with her fingertip. "What we've done has never been attempted before. There will be those who see it as salvation for our species, but others ... She paused, and he felt her fear spike. "Others will view it as an abomination, a dilution of Valari purity." Jace rolled over to face her, cupping her cheek in his palm. "Then we'll face them together. Whatever happens, we're bonded now. Nothing can change that." Their kiss was tender, but charged with an electricity that never seemed to fade. Through their link, Jace experienced the kiss from her perspective as well as his own, the soft pressure of lips, the warmth of breath, the taste that was uniquely him. The sensation was overwhelming in its intensity, and they broke apart, gasping. "I'll never get used to that," Elira laughed, her eyes bright with love and desire. "Feeling everything through both of our senses. It's like living in a constant state of euphoria." "Don't get used to it," Jace said, nuzzling her neck. "I like surprising you." They made love then, as they had every morning since the bonding, slowly, tenderly, with a connection that transcended the purely physical. Every caress was felt doubly, every sigh of pleasure shared between them. When Elira arched beneath him, Jace felt her sensation as well as his own, creating a feedback loop of pleasure that left them both trembling and breathless. Later, as they prepared for the arrival of the Valari ships, Jace found himself struggling with doubts he'd managed to keep hidden from their bond. The mental privacy he'd lost still chafed sometimes, especially during moments like this when he wanted to process his fears alone. "Your shielding is improving," Elira observed, appearing at his side as he stood at the observation deck. "But I can still sense your unease. What troubles you?" He sighed, knowing there was no point in trying to hide his concerns from her. "What if they're right? What if what we've done is somehow wrong? I've bound myself to you forever, and I don't regret it, but sometimes I wonder if I really understood what I was giving up." Elira was quiet for a long moment, and through their link he felt her processing his words without judgment. "Do you regret our bonding?" she asked finally. "No," he said immediately, turning to take her hands in his. "Never. But sometimes I miss being alone in my own head. Is that terrible to admit?" "Not terrible at all," she replied, squeezing his hands. "I miss aspects of my old life, too. The ability to have private thoughts, to surprise you with gifts or plans. But then I remember what it felt like to be dying, to feel my mind fragmenting. And I know that what we have is worth any sacrifice." Before Jace could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The Valari delegation had arrived, their sleek vessels materializing from hyperspace in perfect formation. Through the viewport, he could see 5 ships, each one as organically beautiful as Elira's derelict craft had been, but these pulsed with life and power. "They're requesting permission to board," Elira said, though she hadn't moved to check the communications console. Through their bond, she was accessing the ship's systems directly through his neural interface. Another advantage of their connection, They were still discovering. "Are you ready for this?" Jace asked. "With you by my side? I'm ready for anything." The delegation that materialized in the Stellar Wanderer's transport bay was led by an imposing Velari male named Theron, whose silver skin held undertones of blue and whose mental presence radiated authority. Behind him stood 3 other Velari too, females and another male, all of them staring at Jace with mixtures of curiosity and suspicion. "Ambassador Alira," Theron said, his melodic voice carrying undertones of relief and concern. "We feared you were lost when your ship disappeared from our sensors. But this ... His gaze fixed on Jace, and through their bond, Alira felt the older Velari's mental probe testing the edges of their connection. "This is unprecedented." "Theron," Alira replied formally, though Jace could feel her affection for the older Velari. "Allow me to present my bondmate, Captain Jace Rowan. Jace, this is Theron, leader of our High Council." The word bondmate sent ripples of shock through the delegation. One of the females gasped audibly, while the younger male took a step backward. "Impossible," the male breathed. "Humans cannot form this sacred bond. Their minds are too primitive, too disconnected from the cosmic flow. And yet here we stand," Alira said firmly, taking Jace's hand. The moment their skin touched, their bond flared with visible energy, the air around them shimmering with telepathic resonance. "Captain Rowan saved my life and proved that love transcends species barriers." Theron studied them intently, his mental probes growing stronger. Jace felt the alien consciousness pressing against their bond, testing its strength and authenticity. Finally, the elder Velari's expression shifted from suspicion to wonder. "By the ancient stars," Theron whispered, "it's real. The bond is genuine, stable, and ... quotes." He paused, his eyes widening. "Stronger than any I've ever encountered. How is this possible?" "I don't know," Alira admitted, "but I believe Jace was meant to find me. His mind resonates with ours in ways we never thought possible. This changes everything," one of the females said, her voice filled with excitement. "If humans can bond with us, it could save our entire species." "Or destroy what makes us Velari," the younger male countered. "This mixing of species violates every sacred tradition we hold dear." The debate that followed was intense, with the delegation arguing among themselves, while Jace and Alira stood united, their bond providing them with strength and certainty. Through it all, Jace felt Alira's unwavering love and commitment, while she drew comfort from his steady presence and unshakable devotion. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as one. The Velari homeworld of Siltara hung before them like a dying jewel, its once vibrant surface now mottled with the gray scars of the plague that had devastated Alira's people. Through the viewport of the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Dream, Jace watched cities that had once housed millions now standing empty, their organic spires reaching toward the stars like the fingers of supplicants. "Hard to believe this was once the most beautiful world in our sector," Alira said softly, her mental voice heavy with grief as she joined him at the observation deck. Through their bond, now stronger than ever, after 2 months together, he felt her pain as acutely as his own. "It will be again," Jace replied, pulling her close. "What we've started here will give your people hope." The past weeks had been a whirlwind of revelation and change. After the initial shock of their unprecedented bond, the Velari High Council had voted to invite them to Siltara to study their connection and explore the possibility of human Velari bonding programs. Not everyone supported the decision traditionalist. Factions viewed their union as a contamination of Velari purity, but desperation had won over prejudice. "The preliminary tests are remarkable," Theron had told them during the journey. "Captain Rowan's neural patterns have adapted to accommodate Velari telepathic frequencies in ways our scientists didn't think possible. If we can replicate this compatibility in other humans, we could save our species, Elira had finished, though her tone carried as much uncertainty as hope. Now, as their ship descended through Siltera's atmosphere, Jace felt the weight of an entire civilization's expectations settling on his shoulders. Through their bond, Elira sensed his anxiety and sent waves of reassurance flowing between them. "Whatever happens," she whispered aloud, "we face it together." The bonding facility was located in Siltera's capital city, a sprawling complex of living buildings that seemed to pulse with their own bioluminescent heartbeat. As they toured the laboratories, where desperate Velari scientists worked around the clock to understand their connection, Jace was struck by the dedication of these beings to save their own kind. "Your bond has already inspired 12 successful pairings," explained Kaelin, the facility's chief researcher, her excitement palpable. "Human volunteers who've tested compatible with our neural frequencies. It's not a perfect success rate, but it's more than we dared hope for." They were introduced to some of these new bonded pairs humans who had traveled across the galaxy after word of the breakthrough had spread, drawn by love or adventure or simple compassion to help a dying species. Watching them interact, seeing the same wonder and connection that he shared with Elira reflected in their relationships, filled Jace with profound satisfaction. "You did this," Elira told him that evening as they stood on the balcony of their quarters, looking out over a city that was slowly beginning to show signs of renewed life. "Your willingness to bond with me, to take that leap of faith, has given my people a future." "We did this," Jace corrected, turning her to face him. "I couldn't have bonded with just any Velari. It was you, Elira. Your strength, your courage, your beautiful mind. That's what made the connection possible." Their kiss was deep and passionate, charged with all the love and gratitude they felt for each other. Through their bond, the sensation was amplified beyond the merely physical, becoming a communion of souls that left them both breathless. "There's something I need to tell you," Elira said when they broke apart, her mental voice carrying an odd mixture of excitement and nervousness. "What is it?" Jace asked, though he was already probing gently at her thoughts, trying to understand the source of her emotional turbulence. "The bonding between our species. It's had an unexpected side effect." She took his hands in hers, her violet eyes bright with tears of joy. "The researchers have been monitoring our connection since we arrived, and they've discovered something remarkable. Our bond has evolved, Jace. It's become something entirely new." "New how?" "We're generating new neural pathways, creating connections that exist nowhere else in recorded Velari or human history. And those connections they're creating something beautiful." She paused, gathering her courage. "Jace, I'm pregnant." The words hit him like a physical blow, stunning him into silence. Through their bond, he felt Alira's fear that he might not be happy about the news, might see it as a complication or burden. "Pregnant?" he whispered. "But you're Velari. I'm human. How is that possible?" "The bond," she explained, relief flooding through their connection as she felt his wonder rather than rejection. "It's changed us both on a fundamental level. The researchers believe our joined consciousness has created new biological possibilities. The child will be something unprecedented, part human, part Velari, but wholly unique." Jace felt tears streaming down his face as the full magnitude of what she was telling him sank in. "We're going to have a baby?" "We're going to have a baby," Elira confirmed, laughing through her own tears. He lifted her off her feet, spinning her around as joy exploded through their shared consciousness. When he set her down, they were both giddy with happiness and possibility. "This changes everything," Jace said, placing his hand reverently on her still flat stomach. "Not just for us, but for both our species. If our child can exist, can thrive, then the future holds possibilities we never imagined," Elira finished, Over the following months, their child became a symbol of hope for both humans and Velari. The pregnancy progressed normally, monitored closely by fascinated scientists who documented every development. The bonding program expanded rapidly as more compatible pairs were identified, and slowly, the dying world of Siltera began to heal. 6 Months later, Jace stood once again at a viewport, but this time he was looking out at the new horizon. The first joint human-Velari colony ship, preparing for its maiden voyage to establish settlements where bonded pairs could live and raise their families in peace. "She's beautiful," Aelira said, joining him with their 3-month-old daughter Zara, cradled in her arms. The baby was a perfect blend of both her parents, human in basic structure, but with the luminescent skin and violet eyes of her Velari heritage. Her neural development was already showing signs of enhanced telepathic ability, promising a future where the barriers between species would be truly meaningless. "She's our future," Jace agreed, reaching out to stroke his daughter's downy silver hair. All of their futures. Through the viewport, they could see other families boarding the colony ship human Velari, pairs with their children, living proof that love could indeed transcend species barriers. The sight filled both of them with profound satisfaction and hope. "Do you ever regret it?" Aelira asked, echoing the question that had started their journey together. "The loss of privacy, the permanent connection, all the changes to your life?" Jace looked at her, his bondmate, his love, the mother of his child, his partner in reshaping the future of two species, and felt nothing but gratitude for the desperate plea that had brought them together. "Never," he said, pulling both his. "Girls close. You asked me to bond with you or let you perish. I chose to bond with you, and in doing so, I found my purpose, my love, my everything. We're forever bound, Aelira, and that's exactly where I want to be." Their daughter gurgled happily, her tiny mind already reaching out through the neural pathways that connected all three of them. And in that moment, surrounded by love and endless possibility, Jace knew that the future had never looked brighter. The stars stretched out before them, infinite and welcoming, waiting for the next chapter of their extraordinary story to unfold.